fired up, ready to go. We're back. It's your favorite homies. We got Unc and Big Bro and other Big Bro here just to hold your hand and lead you through this market madness. It's your boy Nick, Jeff DI, Bags here, and Gautam Jipaiza. You're watching Stocktwits Community Live because it's 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. So why the hell wouldn't you be here? We're just telling you like all these things that have been successful for the past 3 months. So I don't know why you wouldn't watch. But anyway, we're here. Hey guys, I'm fired up. GP's fired up. I see that Cheshire cat eating grin there that Nick has going on. Cat eating grin. I don't think that's right. Cheshire cat with a shit eating grin. That's what I meant to say. Hey boys.
What's up?
Yeah.
I don't know. We just unloaded on Keith and Max just everything that we're going to talk about in like 60 seconds a minute ago. So this is going to be an exciting day. Let's pull up the chart, shall we?
Yeah.
You know where we're going to start. We're always starting with the Qs. And what do you know? Yesterday we finally broke even for the year on May 13th. We have broken even. We're green for the year. And hey, Nick, that looks like a V to me. I know I said it wasn't, but that looks like a V to me.
Yeah, it sure does.
Sure
I think we were all, myself included, we're all kind of hoping that we kind of built out a right shoulder a little bit more. But, I think, the name of the game, buy some, hold some.
Yeah, if you're not holding something, you're losing out on something, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're an IBD growth guy, I think O'Neill had talked about it. It's like, you get the follow through day. You got to buy something.
Right.
So
even I bought something as bearish as I was. I mean, I'm almost up 50% on Broadcom. I mean, that's insanity, right? Like that's insanity.
I mean, I think GP is the only one that I saw calling for a straight up lockout, and that's essentially what we've gotten since we put in that higher low down there.
So like we talked about it, right? Like you had this historical move down. Absolutely got that wrong, right? I never thought we'd hit 4,800 or 408 on the Qs or whatever. Like I thought we'd stop at 5,500, and they pressed the metal down. So it had me second guessing. I always thought we were going to pull in from the 6,100 level. I just didn't think it was going to be as much as it was. They went much deeper. They had the news. They could accelerate it. But when you hit a 50% retracement, when you hit a prior high from 4 years ago, when you have historical capitulation volume, when you have a historical move, we had a 12% move. Even if you didn't buy that Monday low, what were you thinking? We had this thrust and that thrust, and literally everyone's thrusting everything, right? Like it's like a big fucking big orgy. But you had all these things telling you needed to be long
involved,
and all you could do was short it. And I even reminded people's thought processes in March of 2020 when we called for a very similar type bottom and move, right? And so you had inherently worse news. They were talking about iPhones being $5,000, tariffs being 347% on China. We're going to go into a multi-decade depression. Literally everything. Look, we had Kramer calling for a Black Monday, right? Like there are a lot of things that should have been on your Batman radar that you should have been
Spidey
like, okay, well,
I'm a Marvel guy, so Spidey sense.
Yeah. And like the number one thing for me was Tesla was one of the first to break down back in December, right? It went from 488 to 360 without flinching. December 18th, it topped out. And then on this acceleration went all the way down to the original breakout, but did not fill the gap. We talked about this, Nick, or I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I was like, yo, how are you going to be that weak and not fill the gap by 60 cents? Like, that's just ridiculous, right? And so there was a lot of clues that if you aren't long, then you probably need to assess how you're viewing the markets, right? I'm waiting for the 200 SMA to be reclaimed. Is that how you're going long? Sure. Okay. There's better ways to get long. I've been posting about it for over a decade. You guys have been posting about it for a long time too. Nick, decade. I think, Ben, you're a decade too now. Go back and look at what we talk about during these periods. It's really important for you to build out a better process, in my opinion. If you're okay with missing it, fine, that's all good. But if you want to be long and you're feeling FOMO, then understand where your fear took over the ability to navigate the markets.
Well, just like let's go back, right? I mean, I was the bear of the trio here, right? I was like in the first quarter. We got to see how this plays out. I don't like it, but when the sell-off happened, and I said, well, I bought a bunch of Broadcom. Nick, do you remember why I said I bought a bunch of Broadcom?
I don't remember why.
It was just like, you got to buy something. Like,
the
entire market was way too far. Like, you got to buy something. Shit.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I didn't let my bear bias keep me from being like, well, I mean, let's just pull up AVGO here real quick. I mean, I had those puts that I sold to get long, but once we broke $165, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, unless we're going to zero, unless the nukes are flying in the air, like, you got to put some money to work here.
In hindsight's obviously 2020, but man, like, seeing that, I refer to those big bars as wide range bars and igniting bars. And it's like the risk reward there is so easily identifiable. Like, price takes out the low of that bar and you're gone. You're wrong. I just thought that, like, that massive bar that we had, like, if that wasn't your signal to start accumulating, I don't know what would give you. Yeah.
The first one, right?
What were you waiting for?
It went from new position to my second largest holding, basically in the amount of 3 weeks.
And it's the first one, right? When on April 7th, that Monday, when we had this massive gap down, you get a 10% reversal in minutes. Volatility is telling you that a lot of people are caught off guard, and any bit of piece of news is going to fucking rip this market.
And throwing money hand over fist at SOXL, right? I'm fishing in the $8 and $9. Like, your boy is. Anyway, I'm thankful and grateful. I don't want to be too patting myself on the back here because you guys called the reversal. But yeah, it feels good when all of a sudden plans that you've developed, whether it's you, Nick, or UGP, or me, right? The plans that you've made come to fruition and play out the way you want to.
Work out.
It's like planting a garden, a beautiful garden, and everything just comes up spectacularly. You can't beat it.
You can't. And if you've been watching the price action this week or even last week, it's like I talked about this on FSLR, right? On Monday, I'm like, they are just trying to shake you out. And that was at what, 143, 144. And literally the next day it did that, right? Like, so
33% in 4 days.
Yeah. And so a lot of what I'm seeing right now in the markets is when it gets to these resistance points, these intraday traders or whatever they are, institutions, whoever they are coming in and trying to stop it from breaking out, doing it via puts mostly or calls being sold or whatever it was. I talked about a kind of ambiguous chart on Tesla on Monday. It's the same thing. Like, these guys are day trading these options, and they're going to get run over because the bigger move is higher. So it's funny to see that we are being controlled, but that just tells me that we aren't even in expansion in some of these names, right? Like,
no,
and
just
so
getting
like the
it feels
FSLR
to me as
also,
we're just getting started.
yeah, that's the thing, right? The FSLR example is they did that via puts. They brought it down, whatever, showed you volume, all that other stuff, but then it got the expansion candle, right? So there's so many of those names. Tesla happens to be one of them, right? And I was talking about this before we got on the call, is like every time it tries to break higher, it just gets sold, and it's not on a lot of volume. And if you look at the flow, it's on calls or puts or whatever what they're doing, the mechanics. But because of this, it hasn't gotten the expansion candle necessary to break out. So to me, this is still pending. There's so many other names that fall into that. We talked about it: Affirm, Twilio, Lemonade, Reddit. There's a lot of names, but
they're really. I at this point, I still don't think that they're. I mean, this probably leads into what you were going to talk about going into next week. But if you're not currently involved, there's not really a reason, in my opinion, to have even now to have much FOMO, because if you miss this move, it's as simple as setting alerts at prices that you would have gotten involved and just wait for the pull in, because we are gonna get it.
Let's do that, Nick. Let's do that.
Whatever.
Let's put some levels. I got SPY up here. Where are you looking on SPY? I can do the daily or the weekly.
So we'll pull up the Qs actually, just because that's kind of what I have. So it doesn't matter. Where I think we're probably going to pull back to is I think we're going to test that gap low. 500 is right underneath it. I could see us even shaking under 500 and finding a low there. So basically, like, let's just hypothetically say that happens. If you're at your screens, like, what you're going to want to watch for is price take out the low of that gap low, or even 500, and then reclaim it, and it giving you a clear signal that it's going to hold that reclaim is where I would be looking if I had a Q's position currently. I think on that though, it's still a stock picker's market. Like, you got to pay attention to your stocks. If you're in positions, yeah, it's prudent to be selling some share in the strength, especially if that's built within if that's within your strategy. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that.
Give us a name. We'll look it up.
HIMS.
What's your level?
HIMS is a good example of a name. Like, you could use HIMS. I was going to use, Roblox or Palantir too, because they all kind of look similar. I mean, Palantir's taken out the high, but HIMS.
I wish you would call me out on Palantir.
Well, let's just HIMS, for instance, like, as a bull, I am praying for some form of VCP, a 3-week tight, a little flag, like something here to leg in more before we rip highs and we're in clear skies.
Nick, what's a VCP?
Volatility contraction pattern. It's a pattern that Minervini coined. It's just it kind of looks like a miniature ascending triangle kind of at highs. So it'll pull in, make a low, bounce back, pull back in, make a higher low, bounce back, and then it just gets tighter and tighter. I agree with you, GP, and actually MBG mentioned it yesterday, saying that he thought we were going to see another volatility spike. But I was thinking, like, July, August sounds really good. I mean, that sets us up for a nice push into the end of the year.
So on HIMS, would you want to see something like this come down here into this gap area, Nick?
I mean, ideally it holds the gap, but I mean, depending on, again, you got to take it day by day, and
but sort of cool off, hold something in there. So right now, let's say over 66, it's breaking out. And you'd like to see maybe 54.
54, 55. I mean, Hims is kind of a Bronco though, so it's like to expect or to anticipate something tight up here. I don't know if it's very realistic, but the 20 days sitting down at 40, the 50 days still down at 35. The 200 days down at 28. So it's like
GP,
we are
you're
extended.
in Hims, right? You're trading Hims, GP.
I'm not trading. I'm investing. And
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Like I will buy on expected dips. I don't think we dip here. It's having, and I'll be the first to say it, it's having its Tesla moment. In 2019, Tesla was a $22 billion company trading at a $30 billion market cap and growing 100% year over year. Would not get the expansion. Finally tested the bottom of the base, which Hims just did as well. And finally got the expansion. It went from 20, I think at that time it was 180 all the way to 2,600 over the next year or so. It is a similar short interest as Tesla at that time too, 34-35%. Everyone thinks it's boner pills, right? It's not some fancy company, anyone can replicate it. And the best part about the earnings is at a minimum, they guided to $6.4 billion in revenue by 2030, which is in the next 4.5 years. And they're telling you at a minimum, right? And they also signed the Novartis partnerships. They have other partnerships coming. There's a lot of people who are still in disbelief about it. And there's still a high short interest. I think we haven't gotten the expansion. Nick, this was one of the ones I talked about. The expansion is over previous highs. This is stuck in the gap. So maybe a couple of days here and there, it kind of fumbles around a little bit, but the next move is out of all-time highs and higher.
So this was your path. I already drew it for you. I knew what you were going to say, right?
Yeah.
Kind of shallow pullbacks here in this tight range of maybe today's candle.
Yeah.
And then she gone.
They took a $470 million offering and were overbought by over 100%. They closed at $1 billion. They are a free cash flow machine. They do about $200-300 million a year. They are still growing at 40% clip. If it goes lower, it'll be an opportunity for me to buy much. So like I said, I'm not trading this. I'm investing here, and I'm investing from the 25 mark. So or actually below. When was it? What was the level we called in November? It was like 17, right? 18.
I'll have to pull up another chart, but I'm sure it's somewhere here.
Yeah, the Amazon news where it went all the way back to 17, 18. Remember, Nick?
Yeah.
So I'm long from that level. I understand I'm already doing well, so I can talk a lot of crap. But my general thought process even then was the same Tesla type movement. We talked about the pull into the 50 week as well at the end of February or into March, right? So
I got
if
dinged
it goes
so
lower,
hard
great.
on that gap
I'm
down.
not touching anything unless we get a bigger pull. Like, so let's say we get a check back to like 38, 39. Cool. That will be an opportunity for me to add again. But I'm not adding anything here. I'm waiting for it to play out.
Do you guys remember back in November when we were texting each other back and forth? I think it was like a Saturday morning, and you were like, Hims. You know, the funny thing about that was I was actually in a Walgreens while you guys are saying Hims. And here I'm like, psh, these guys, what morons.
They're just crushing it, right? And they're executing. And so if management continues to show that they're executing and you continue to doubt it, who's wrong? You or the management? So whatever we want to do. But I do want to go back and talk about the Qs, right, a little bit.
Let's go.
So you asked Nick on what you think is going to happen over the short period of time. So I think the Qs have an opportunity to push anywhere between 524 and 530 if it overextends a bit, but that should be into the end of the week. And if you've heard me over the last few weeks and a couple of posts on Stocktwits, I've talked about this week being like April 2020 OPEX, right? And that April 2020 OPEX, if you look at the Qs after the OPEX, it retraced nearly the entire move before closing right back at the highs, right? And then people will call it spinning top, end of world, blah, blah, blah. You know how the narratives go. But I think, so I'm building a put position a couple weeks out to make sure that I am hedged. I'm using SPXU. And the plan is to add in a few batches, right? So I added my first batch today. I'll add a couple more tomorrow, or another one tomorrow, and then into Friday. So I think we have the Qs pull back to that 495 area. Do you see it?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Where we kind of broke down from, retest that, and then launch. And have a face ripper into June. That's my thinking.
How much are 497 puts right now, GP, for like 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out?
I bought calls in SPXU, right? Not puts and Qs.
Yeah.
So
I'm just asking about Qs puts.
I can tell you in a second. So next Friday, 495 puts. It'll get there eventually. Are a little over $1.14, right? So I find that to be slightly expensive. So I'd probably, if I was doing this, use a higher strike, like the 505s or the 510s, and get less percentage but be hedged, right? Yep. And so, or a couple weeks out, you can pay more premium for time. Yep. But I wouldn't be buying the 495s. I would be buying 510s, 505s for a pullback of 2 to maybe 4%.
Nick, you're grinning. You're still grinning. What's going on? You don't think we're going to pull back?
Randy's not wearing any clothes. Yeah, we can keep going.
Randy's not wearing pants. That's
Randy.
That's not unexpected, Randy.
I know.
Wow. I didn't expect that to be what had you. Let's get back on track. Nick,
yeah.
do you think we're going to have a pullback, or do you think we're just going to keep marching back to all-time highs?
The optimist in me wants to see a pullback or some form of consolidation here, versus only because I think it would be a more sustainable, a better opportunity to add or leg into positions if we had a more well-defined kind of pivot up here. But I mean, if we don't get it, we don't get it. I was kind of thinking that I too kind of have been following the COVID playbook. That's kind of what I've been anticipating. And if that's the case, we're going to start to see like just a slow melt, like low volatility, slow melt higher, probably trends along the 20-day maybe. Hopefully not as steep as like the 10-day. I found to be the initial rip in COVID difficult because I cast a wide net and caught a lot of it, but the names I was in ripped so hard that I didn't really feel comfortable. Like they felt so extended. I didn't feel comfortable adding or legging in. So I want the opportunity to leg in more, but I'm happy with everything I got. It's just, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's greedy, I guess. I don't know. I try to pray for setups versus like the outcome, just to keep my expectations in check. And so like if I'm like, if you see, like 2 weeks in a row we got the tight close, well shit, I'm gonna start praying for the 3-week tight, because then I know that I can, use that as a pivot, may act as some form of support down the line, or even like throw on a starter there if I'm not in something, and just throw my stop under the low wick of that 3-week tight. So yeah, The other thing I was going to say, GP, is I posted a chart a while back of bears hoping that this played out as a head and shoulders. Like you can see the left shoulder head and then the right shoulder starting to form, but we've now taken out the high of that left shoulder. So if that ends up forming, that would look kind of gross. I'm not in that camp. I don't think that's happening. Yeah, absolutely.
They gapped right over it. They gapped right over the 20 week, over the 30 week. Like it's powerful by any means.
And that's what you want to see. We've discussed that, I don't know, countless times, right? Is when there's a potential pattern forming and you gap above it or gap over it. It's like, okay, that pattern is not playing out, right? That doesn't mean you can't come back in and retest it, but I'm sure there's going to be some bears out there who are going to say, yeah, this is a head and shoulders. No, it's not. It is not a head and shoulders.
It could be a wonky still one, but what you're looking at is you have a MACD that's about to cross up again on the weekly. You have gaps over big moving averages that a lot of people follow. So you would have to see it actually break down here, right? Like your conversation about
significantly break down.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of power. The way we had a historical move from February to beginning of April, we are doing the entire opposite right now. And as much as you might be political in terms of I don't like Trump or I don't like Biden or whatever, what Trump has done in the last couple of days or last week, you got to give a little bit of kudos to, right? Like
that China deal was a great thing.
The China deal was pretty unexpected, right? Like I didn't think they were gonna come down that much. I didn't think China was gonna come to the table that much. I thought they were gonna fight more.
The narrative was it was gonna get pushed out like 3 to 6 months from now.
Yeah.
So we still don't have details on what this deal is, other than we're suspending tariffs, right? Like that's currently the deal. So we don't know, other than we've pulled back on tariffs, which anyone who would listen, everyone said this was a bad idea. So is it okay to? We're not going to get political right now.
Well, I'm just saying that's the beauty of technicals, is that you can ignore the news entirely and just play the chart.
Right.
Yeah. We talked about this last week, though. Even if you didn't ignore, even if you didn't know technicals, Ben said, I'm going to listen to the administration back in November. And now the administration is telling you, we are going to walk everything back and we're going to get deals done. And you're going to say, nope, now I'm going to choose not to listen. Forget technicals, right? Let's just talk macro.
Right.
Those should be just two good enough signals. Technicals will get you into a better spot at a better position at a better price, but even like the administration told you they're going to do this wacky tariff thing, and then they said they're going to walk it back. So, will there be some impacts to this? Probably, but it's the same conversation. So, I'm assuming they'll have some fights in June when we kind of start to see more consolidation and topping. But yeah, I think this is interesting, right? With everything that's going on. It's a combination of macro and technicals.
Yeah. Pull up the Google chart real quick.
I'd love to.
I didn't play it, but I want to talk about it because I think it's important when, we saw that massive bar. We talked about this last week. What should have followed that massive wide range bar is some follow through. And we didn't get it. It gapped up. It held inside that bar. And an inside bar is definitely indicative of continuation in the direction of kind of that previous trend resuming. However, the second day should have given you more clues as to like, dude, what the hell? Like, why is this thing not following through? I certainly didn't anticipate today's bar happening. I actually wasn't even watching Google, but that third day where we gapped up, what is the green line with the 20-day probably?
The green line is the 20-day, yes.
Yeah, 20-day, yeah. Price gapped up right there. I was like, oh man, they're gonna fucking run this thing the other way. Like this is like a prime example. Just it's like when you're trying to put together a trade and you're stacking these if thens, right? Like if you're not an all in, all out kind of trader and you're stacking things, like these are the things I think that people should be paying attention to. Like, oh, this happened. We should be expecting this to happen following, and it didn't. So that's got to give you a little, I don't know, a little red flag or whatever you want to call it. Especially if Google is a position that you want to be in. Just, I don't know. I wanted to follow up on that because after the bar
can
today,
set some levels for you right here. Obviously, I was greedy, right? I wanted under 150. That initial volatility spike down gave it to you, and I kind of expected a retest of that. So far, we're not getting it, and I'm not expecting to get it. I think you try to play this thing close to 160, 161. I think that's where you sort of, if you get a pull in and you don't breach below these curling over moving averages, I think that's your chance. We're butting up against them on the weekly, so all bets could be off, and this could fail. But I don't think it's going to. I think as long as this guy sticks up here in the 160s, I think it's going to be all right. I think that will be my next opportunity to buy, most likely.
Yeah.
So there's one that I want to talk about outside of Google, and I think that's really kind of important for overall market schemes, right? And
Tesla
and where things are going is the unexpected news that Coinbase was added to the S&P 500.
Oh yeah.
On Monday, overnight. I think it always happens on a Friday, but they just announced it on a Monday, and who they removed to add Coinbase is also quite interesting because they chose to remove a bank. They removed Discover Financials. From the S&P 500 to add in this crypto brokerage house. And so I was curious, Ben, I know you're in the crypto world a lot more than I am, but I thought it was a kind of historic, kind of monumental move and acceptance of what crypto has become.
Yeah, I mean, I think Coinbase obviously is the world recognized leader in brokerage, right? And for the crypto space. And I mean, Discover, nothing against them, but who has more juice to be squeezed? And I would say it's probably Coinbase, right? And the S&P is not stupid. They're not just randomly throwing companies in for the shit's sake of throwing something in. But yeah, I think that juxtaposition of a traditional credit card banking service versus a crypto service speaks to where that industry and those, tokens are going, in my opinion. I mean, you look at Hood, right? Nick, I know you're in Hood, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Hood, I mean, a large part of Robinhood's, their income, right? Their balance sheet is coming off of the top of crypto. Yeah, they're getting some kickbacks in other ways from these major firms that they're sharing data with and whatever, but it's crypto fees, and it's a very profitable business. People want to be involved. And I actually had, I love real world examples. I actually had a discussion with a guy in the barbershop the other day, and he was talking about the Trump meme coin specifically, but we got talking about an entire crypto universe, and he buys everything on Robinhood. And he asked me what I use. And I said, well, I use Coinbase. And he goes, yeah, I think I like Coinbase. And this is a person who I wouldn't say from, probably college age or maybe a little bit older, young professional, right? He's got probably some discretionary funds, but he's not wild. I mean, his 401k is probably smaller or around the same size as his crypto account, right? And I think that just goes to show the mind frame and how the younger generations are viewing all these coins and how they can potentially use their dollars to get into other things. And yeah, you can lose a lot of money, but you can make a lot of money as well. And I think that's exciting. I think it's gambling to some degree, right? Whether it's DraftKings or whoever else, there's 1,000 ways in the palm of your hand with your device that you can figure out how can I grow my money. And I think more people are getting in tune with that. And Robinhood and Coinbase, there's no two better apps on your phone, in my opinion, probably, that the younger generation love to look at and do than those two.
So agreed. All those things agreed. I guess it was just interesting that it was Discover Financial that they have a mandate that it has to be a certain amount. But why not remove Match.com? Match.com does not belong in the S&P 500. That shit hasn't grown in years.
Yep.
So like, there's a lot of names that are in the S&P 500 that can be removed that are
Do you think they looked at it from a financial perspective though, or maybe they did and was like, "What's the financial? Who's the biggest laggard that we should kick out?" And I'm not taking Match.com's side in this beef here, but at the same time, if I'm removing something which might have more growth, Discover Financial, Match.com. I don't know.
Yeah, but Match is one of my examples, but there's a ton of names that haven't moved in decades. Isn't Cisco in S&P 500 as well, right? Like, hasn't really gone anywhere. But or AT&T, right?
Yes.
They're in the S&P 500. So we know AT&T is not growing anytime soon. So there's a lot of names that they could have chosen to take out. Maybe there's a mandate that there has to be a certain percentage of financial sector stocks.
Yeah,
I don't know the answer to that one, but I just thought it was interesting that it was Discover Financial and not one of the other 175 laggards in the S&P 500.
So somebody will tell us in the comments. They love to correct us when we're wrong.
Yeah.
We talked about Google already. We've touched on Tesla. Anything more to say about Tesla, guys?
No. We should talk about Dave because that's one we've talked about.
There you go. There you go. There's Rocket Ship Dave.
Fantastic little company, fintech, just crushing it. Consolidation and go, right? So I imagine at the 50% retrace, it's going to become a heavier battle to overcome, which is around the 240, 250 level. But just they're crushing it. So
yeah, that's a good trade. Another trade that we've thrown at everybody, Baba. We were talking with our good friend Keith, and I don't see Baba stopping for a while. I see 170, 180 on the horizon short term. What do you guys see? Since we're talking levels.
Yeah, I think by the end of the year you're well above 200, but that's me. It's a fundamentally cheap
stage
company. 2. Yeah, let's go ahead.
I was gonna say stage 2 continuation through 150, and then you could with that if you look at the monthly, God, that long ass tail, like you could just use that last monthly bar as an entry too. So you're getting long basically here through 136 if you don't already have a position on. I agree. I think it's pushing to 200 for show.
Yeah.
Oh, show.
And if you're following along with the trade that we talked about on the show, the Baba December calls, I haven't sold anything. If you needed the update, I'm still holding. I know earnings is tomorrow. If you get nervous about earnings, then you should take profits because they're up close to 200%. But if you're not worried about this earnings, then you can hold with me.
We have already been going for 40 minutes. It's hard to believe. Sometimes we get on this heater and we just keep going and going and going.
So I'd like to talk about one setup, right?
Sure.
I think that's probably something that people don't really pay attention to. And when you have declining weekly moving averages and what looks like a declining 50 week, a declining 200 week, or they're about to cross with the 200 week, and they get reclaimed,
Oh
it's
yeah.
usually a really, really good sign that a big change is on the horizon. Do I mean tomorrow it's going to go nuts? No, but I think you need to stalk that that conversation. If you're looking at one of those names, Twilio happens to be one of those names,
Oh, Twilio.
right? And so if you if you look at this, you have the 50-week rising and the 200-week declining, and this week it's reclaiming the 200-week on Twilio. So it's there's and then it rejected it the first time, right? And so these are things that you want to be watching for a trend change or a shift or whatever else that's going on here, because it is now no longer beholden to the, well, it could still fail for the week because we're still on Wednesday. But if this holds this way, that holds a declining 200 SMA, it's telling you that traders who follow technicals aren't as there's people coming in buying, is what I'm saying, right?
Well,
Over
this
traders.
shows you all you need to know right here,
Yeah.
right? Like circle number 2 to the right is a much powerful setup. You're completely overextended, right? As you reach this 200 here, you've allowed these lower moving averages to gather, and now they're your support and they push you higher, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, but I think these are things that I watch for in the markets. Like, for example, change this to PayPal instead of Twilio. It's rejecting it, right? Like they're like these are the things that are issues of strong stocks that are still in a weak position. Maybe PayPal behaves better in the future, but it couldn't even get to the 200 week. It rejected the 50 week. This is stuff that a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to be long. It's a value play. And I'm like, chart still looks like garbage, right? And I don't have any interest in these names because of how that looks. If it starts behaving better, I'm happy to miss the entire bottom and not deal with the hell that has been PayPal or Square over the last 3 years, right?
I just had to flag some spam in the comments there, but yes, you're exactly right, GP.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. Also, really like Affirm, right? Like if you guys are looking at chart names, you should be looking at a lot of these base breakout retests, right? And that's Twilio as well. On the monthly, it wicked off the base top. So Affirm, similar conversations. So if you're looking at not just Affirm, but a lot of these newer IPOs, the 4 or 5 year IPOs that I hate, Ben, they're starting to look like they're ready. They've tested their base top. They're starting to look like they're ready for the next level higher.
If you don't have 2 or 3 years in the game, GP doesn't want to see you.
Absolutely not.
He's going to tell
Except
you
for the first 6 months.
off.
I'll play any IPO the first 6 months because they're always rampant.
One name that we talked about last week, GP, similar setup. I flashed it on the screen earlier. There you go, Okta. And Okta's breaking out, right? We talked about this exact move last week.
Yeah. And what this tells you about the declining 200 SMA, in my view, is that it's still not ready for the bigger breakout, right? It's still going to chop and fill in this area. So it can come back and retest the declining 200 SMA on the weekly. And what that does if it retests is it ends up flattening out the 200 week. That's the point of the retest, right? And so if the point of the retest is to flatten out the 200 week and then start to turn up, you don't buy. To me, I don't buy this yet. If you didn't buy the 200 week reclaim, I think you wait for it to come back and pull in to that 200 week as it flattens out. And once it flattens out, game on.
The weekly looks good, but when you go back down to the daily, it's a little stretched, right? So you want to see the porridge kept just right. I don't know how many times that I've had to tweet or twat that out there. Keeping the porridge just right. You don't want it to be too hot. You don't want it to be too cold. and this is on the verge of a little too spicy, a little too muy caliente.
Zscaler too.
Yep, Zscaler's gone. I'll never get an entry on Zscaler below 200 again.
You know, one thing we haven't really talked about, GP, is okay. So, generally speaking, stocks are generally going to move in the same direction. Some are going to move faster. Some are going to move slower. Some may not participate, sure. But it's interesting how, God, it was kind of like last year, I think, you know, we were seeing a lot of like island bottoms and reversals work. And now this year we're seeing a ton of like inverse head and shoulders start to play out. For the people out there that have like the FOMO or like feel like they need to catch the first one, I think that's an ego thing. Well, I mean, I suppose if you're trying to get into a specific name, then sure, if you missed it, you missed it. But like if a ticker is a ticker and you don't really care and you're just playing the pattern, I mean, let the first couple work and then there's no shame in hopping on the next.
We got to see where those shirts are. They're supposed to be printed up. We don't love them hoes, right? Like if a ticker's a ticker, then that's what it is. And you just keep it moving and roll on.
That was like that. Coin's a great example of that, right? Even if you didn't know the news was coming, that was an inverse head and shoulders, like exactly the same as it was last time. And so if you had just taken that trade, the IV was
God,
cheap.
That is so.
What?
I think that chart looks incredible.
Yeah, so that's what I've been thinking, and the price action has punched me in the face for the last year. It looks phenomenal, but it was the same setup, and this inverse head and shoulders happened to play out with a news event, right, which tends to rhyme. But like you could have gotten, when it was at 207 on Monday, you could have gotten 230 calls for, I think, under $1. It was so cheap because no one thought it would ever move, right? So you could have literally returned 30, 40x on those weeklies. But even if you didn't want to do weeklies, you could have gone a little bit further out to see if that inverse head and shoulders at that 207 level that it's been rejecting for like the last year plays out, right? So you got to take shots ultimately.
Or you could have listened to your boys for 18 months and said anywhere between 40 and 80, you want to buy.
Yeah, but after that move, it's been quite frustrating. That was a sick move. But
my ego cannot get enough stroking today, GP. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You know why it's okay? Because markets are designed to go up and to the right. And so we just got asked a question in the chat. Do I think the market will keep going up forever? The answer to that is a time frame conversation. If your time frame is 40 years, yes, dude, that's exactly how it's designed. And when you get big dips, like a 50% retrace of moves, those are opportunities to add, right? In almost every market environment outside of the dot-com crisis and the GFC, and we are not in a dot-com crisis, and we're 100% not in the GFC. Those have been solid moments to buy. The only one that's not designed to go up and to the right is small caps, and that's where everyone has their love. The ironic part, small caps need like 17 different things in the world to align at the same time for them to go nuts.
And the moon has to be in the right phase too. Like yes. You have to have someone reading your palm, and you have to have some chicken bones. That's everything that small caps needs. Hey, GP.
That was March 2020. That was all of the world's aligning, right? That's why you got that big move.
In the chat, CDN Mark brought up a great point about Discovery. They're merging with Capital One, so that probably has more to do with them getting kicked out.
Damn it.
So I told you
somebody
would answer for us. Somebody.
I appreciate that. I thought they
always
were.
do.
I really thought they were making a statement, so that kind of sucks.
We're
But-
really deep into the show, guys, and I've got to take the steering wheel here because it's that time.
Yeah.
I've got to pull it up here. Where's it at? Where's it? There it is. Stocktwits. Let's go there because we got to look at what's trending, right? We always love what's trending. And today, something's trending that you guys know I love. And GP, you've been pounding the table on. Oh, it's way down here now. AMD. Why won't my clicker work? There we go. Why is AMD trending? Because Lisa Su is doing a $6 billion buyback program. Let's go to the chart. Let's go back to the chart.
Well, you pull up the chart. A small shout out to one of the Stocktwits sponsors, eToro, for going IPO today.
Oh, nice.
That's kind of cool to see your plan come together. It's nice. They opened a few hours ago. They're trading well above levels. But anyway, back to AMD.
No, eToro, thank you. That's great. Congratulations. There's AMD.
I just saw it on the trending list. So I was like, oh, nice.
There's AMD. There's AMD. The haters can suck it.
Yeah.
That's what that chart is.
That 3-step plan was a pretty good plan, huh?
What'd you say, GP?
The 3-step plan of buying AMD was pretty good.
Yeah, you want to explain that for anybody who hasn't watched us regularly?
Yeah, so we talked about this back, I think back in February, or maybe March. I don't know exactly when it was, but
It all runs together.
I started a position in AMD, and I said I'm buying in 3 batches. One at 121, and if that doesn't hold, I'm going to buy the next one at 90, or was it 95? I don't remember the exact number. And the next one
around there.
Next one was right around 78 or so. So I got my 3 batches. And now we're going up higher. So this is just a conversation about having a plan when you're in things. There's so many ways to skin the cat. If you want to wait till that 78, great. What if you never get it? My thought process was it could get there, but I want to start building a position here. So I was okay with taking the money I was going to allocate towards it, dividing by 3 and putting it towards AMD over that time.
So kids, ladies and gentlemen, people who are in the chat with their pants off or in their mother's basements like I am right now, like this is why you do this in 3 stages. Because if you buy a tranche here and you buy a tranche here and you buy a tranche here, guess where your average is? Ding, 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 right?
Yep. And that's the plan, right? That like, if you don't have that plan, then you're not like, there was people talking about AMD going back to like 30 when it got to 78, by the way.
That's just hogwash.
Well, it could, but you're looking at like 3 times sales.
Yeah. Nick, you don't like AMD?
No, I actually do. I just of all the tickers out there, I mean, from commodities to AMD, just not a strength of mine for whatever reason. I have caught a couple of the rips in AMD over the last couple of years, but I mean, nothing to write home about. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my personality just doesn't match with it or something. I don't know. But I do.
No, it's miserable.
Like, I love the
miserable
monthly.
trader.
You're about to get the monthly MACD cross. On the weekly, you have about as pretty of a pattern as you do on the indices. You had a massive piercing candle with a back-to-back damn near engulfing the candle, the previous candle. You're playing it against the century mark. Now You're pushing into that the declining, whatever that is.
50.
The declining 50. I mean, dream scenario again is you see like some form of like a 3-week tight or something right here, and then price just gaps above that fucker, and it's like, dude, that's when the squeeze is going to be on. I mean, you probably already have a bit of a squeeze going on, but that's kind of just how I would be looking at it. You almost actually had a 3-week tight at 100 almost. I mean, that was pretty dang close. I'd call it a 3-week tight basically at 100. So
yeah. Didn't we say 100 was the mark? I forgot when we last talked about AMD, but it's like over 100, it's game on. It's on and popping. And it's sold down quite a bit today. But look, remember, we want to keep the porridge just right, right? We don't want to be scalding, right? We don't want to be so cold that it's just a brick. We want it to be just right. So I think what's going to happen here is we're probably going to faff around a little bit, and we're probably going to do some of this business, and we're going to catch this trend line down here, just like it did back here. I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're witnessing round 2.
Yeah, dude, it looks exactly like 2022, right? So we chop around the 200 week for a while, and then we have the next leg higher. But
yes, it's been a miserable trader though. Miserable trader.
It's not a trader. You buy and you hold your nose, and you hope for the best, and you do prayer circles, and you light some sage, and yes, you also do some ayahuasca.
Light chanting.
Yeah.
Homing.
Mostly chanting explicitives, because it's garbage. But if you time it right, it can pay well. We don't love them hoes.
Nope. We're right at time. We've got like 3 or 4 minutes. Chat, throw us 2 charts. The first 2 charts that I like that I see will chart, but you gotta do it now. You gotta hurry.
Yeah. While we wait for that, I think the one thing that you gotta look at in these markets is the biggest dog of them all has not even participated. And if you're thinking that this is a double top and we go lower, Apple is not even participating.
You're calling Apple the biggest dog of them all? You meant big dog, not like it's a dog. Okay, my bad. I was like, whoa.
No,
whoa.
But this is the biggest market cap. It is held by the most funds, and it has not really participated in this mooning over the last couple of weeks.
Would you be buying it here, GP? Would you be buying Apple right here, right now?
Yeah.
Nick, would you be buying Apple right here, right now?
Apple. Can you hit the? Well, it'd be worth throwing on a starter. I'd be more interested when it pops above those MAs, like we've been kind of discussing.
So like 218.
Yeah.
That's a monster
I think
island.
There's better.
Do you see the island?
What's that?
Do you see the island?
Can you see the island?
Do you see the
island? So gap above 215. Yeah,
the island right into the 200 SMA is where it's going.
I didn't see that. Holy shit! How did I miss that?
Don't know,
dude.
I changed my mind. I'd have a starter on right now if I was playing Apple.
It's gapping in. I would not be surprised if it gapped into that 200 SMA
tomorrow.
At the end of the week.
Yeah.
All right, the stock we only got one, Nvidia. Go. Who wants to break it down?
Short it.
Nvidia.
Short it, he says.
What? No, man. I've been talking about long Nvidia for the last couple of weeks, couple of months. So there's no reason at this point. It reclaimed the 200-day, followed through. Unless it fails, there's no reason to be short Nvidia here.
No reason to be short Nvidia. As long as the other semis are going, Nvidia is going to go. It's simple as that. And you've got AMD going, you got Broadcom going. You just pull up a semiconductor chart that's not named Intel, and it's probably going.
What I'm hoping for on Nvidia is
Randy.
all the bears come out when it rejects 141 and it calls for a head and shoulders, and then they get rammed in the face.
Sounds like a good time, but we are at time. Our homie Keith will be happy to know we're wrapping it up. So thanks, everybody. It's been another great episode. Stocktwits Community Live. We'll see you right back here. Not next week. I think Nick will be by himself, but we'll see you soon right here Wednesdays at 2 p.m.